things I'm happy I did, like for instance, I was very adamant of I will never look at the weather and nobody talk to me about the weather unless I need to make a decision in that moment. I don't care if the forecast says a week out it's going to rain. Like, me knowing that is not going to change anything. And so I told everyone in my life, like, do not speak to me about the weather because none of us are going to be able to do anything about it. You can't control it.
Loverly presents The Wedding Podcast, a show for those on the road to I do. From relationship advice to wedding planning tips, we break it down. I'm your host, Kelly Khalil, bride-to-be and the founder of Loverly, a DIY wedding planning platform. Over the years, we've helped tens of thousands of couples get down the aisle. And now that it's my turn, I'm not holding back. I'm bringing in my besties, wedding pros, and some brides-to-be you may know to talk through everything from picking the perfect venue to mastering your relationship. It's time to plan smarter so you can focus on the happily ever after. You've got the ring, we've got the rest. Hello, and welcome back to the Loverly Wedding Podcast. This week, I am sitting down with Cameron Rogers, who is a content creator, podcast host of Freckled, Foodie, and Friends, and a mental health champion. We talk all about her wedding planning journey almost 5 years ago and how her mom was so involved she really could have been the wedding planner. And lastly, why she got reimbursed for her wedding gown. That and more. Let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast. Excited to chat about your wedding today.
I am excited too. It feels like literally so long ago. I guess now it's actually been 5 years almost. So it kind of is a long time ago, but I'm excited to relive it.
Well, let's relive every detail, the good, the bad, the ugly. 5 years ago does seem kind of like a long time.
So long. Like when I just said that, I then was doing the math, but yeah, it was October 2018. So in October, which is like not tomorrow, we've got some time, but in a little while, it will be 5 years.
And you're making me feel bad because I have no wedding plan on the horizon, but I've been engaged for almost 3 years. So,
you know what? It doesn't matter. It'll happen. Something will get done. Who cares?
Doing things a little out of order on my end here.
Yeah.
But for those who are just listening, Cameron, who don't know you, give us like the quick background on you. Where do you live? How did you get started into the world of Instagram and lifestyle influencing, like if that's even how you would describe it?
It is, I guess. I never know really what to say I do. I say like content creator, podcast host, but yes, it is influencing. I currently live in New Jersey. I moved out here with my family 3 months ago now. We're in North Jersey, so like we did the city move to suburbia. I absolutely am obsessed with it. I am so happy. I love it here. I felt like it was time, but I also am just really happy with the move. Like once we started to get settled, I was like, this was absolutely the right decision for us. So that's where I'm at right now. I got started in content creation and influencing 5 years ago, honestly, because I quit my full-time job the year that I was engaged. So 6 months before I got married was when I quit my job in finance and tried to make this whole Instagram situation work. And it was very different back then, both my account, but also like the creator industry. There weren't as many at all influencers as there are today. And there definitely wasn't like discussion or social media content focused on this is how you become an influencer. This is how you make money as an influencer. These are
it's like
the
a whole new
possibilities.
world now.
Such a whole new world. So none of that really existed. Obviously there were influencers, but it wasn't nearly as like common of a job as it has become in the past 2-3 years. And my content was definitely focused all on food. Like my face was barely on my page. It was all recipes and meal prep, and that was because I really wanted to keep it separate from my job at the time. And then when I left is when I started to share more about lifestyle things, but specifically mental health. And that was when I felt like I really connected with my community and started to grow my audience. And from there, that is just like where my passion lied. So I started to share more lifestyle related, mental health focused content. And then obviously it's transitioned a bit as my life has evolved. You know, I talked a lot about pregnancy and then postpartum and now parenting and now pregnancy again. So my page and my content and my podcast are all, I guess, kind of just focused on like the evolution of my current life. So my community has evolved and grown with me as they've also gone through these different life stages. But my community also is like partially, I would say, like a quarter younger than me, who are like, I'm so far away from having kids, but this has been such an eye-opening experience to see what like pregnancy, postpartum,
Well, you kind of
parenting
peel back
is
the
like.
curtain, right? Like you
Yeah, I
give people like a
try.
glimpse into, you know, real life, keeping it real.
I try to. Yeah. And then I've got like an older demographic who's like, I'm 50 and I just love your content. I wish you were here when I was doing this. And I was like, I love this older crew that I've got.
And when you launched Freckled Foodie, kind of the POV was kind of focused on like a healthier approach to living and eating. Like, will you just kind of walk through that evolution?
Definitely. Yeah. So I started my account because I was dealing with a lot of digestive health issues. And every like doctor I was seeing a GI, I was seeing functional medicine practitioners. I was really trying to get to the bottom of what the heck was going on. And they all recommended doing elimination diets in contingency with different procedures and medications I was on. And when I was doing these elimination diets, I was getting so overwhelmed and frustrated when I would go out anywhere because it was like so specific of garlic and onion, and that included even like the spice, and it's near impossible. So I started cooking
especially
a lot
in New
of
York City, which is like a foodie city where it's like
Especially.
you basically, the only reason why you live in New York, honestly, is to have access to the best restaurants in the world, period.
Right. And so I started cooking a lot of my own food, also simply because my credit card bill was outrageous. And I started cooking my meals, and I was meal prepping a lot because I also felt like I wanted to eat food that made me feel good, but I was working really demanding corporate hours. And I was spending all this money on like lunch options around my office in Midtown, and then I was still feeling like shit. So that was my way of like helping myself financially and health-wise. And I started this Instagram, Freckled Foodie, originally, and that was mainly just because I was texting all my friends these recipes I was making, and they were like, what's the recipe? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm just gonna put it together. And it was honestly the birth at that point in 2018, or technically I think I started the account in 2016, but I did it full-time in 2018. That was kind of like the birth of the wellness influencer, the food porn accounts, like that type of thing. And I just was looking at them constantly. I was constantly on Mind Body Green, Well and Good, Eater, Infatuation. And I was like, I want to do that. And so that's where the account first grew its legs. And then the transition is partially, yes, because like my life evolved and changed, and it was the way that I felt more connected to my community based on topics I was speaking to. But also during that period of time, the intention was really good because I was trying to heal what was happening in my gut and all of that. But the impact really screwed with my brain. Like I became obsessed with every morsel of food that went into my body and like every ingredient, and it all had to be quote unquote perfect. And I definitely was on the like orthorexic side and had disordered eating. And as I healed that relationship through lots of therapy and self-work, I became less obsessed / interested in food. And therefore, it just felt like that's not where I wanted my content to focus.
Well, it's interesting because part of that healing, I imagine, happened in conjunction with leaving your corporate job.
Yes.
Because I don't know if we talked about this like off camera previously, but the stress of working in finance, which my first career was in finance, I spent 3 years, and every 3 weeks at the end of like when our quotas and our sales quotas would hit, like month end, I would get strep throat, like literally like 9 to 12 months out of the year. And the doctors were like, you need to get your tonsils taken out. You know, this is not normal. Couldn't go on any more antibiotics. And that's kind of a major surgery when you're like in your early 20s.
Yeah.
And I was like not down for it. And then I went to like an alternative practitioner, and they were like, have you looked at like maybe your life choices, like your career as like a cause for this? And I actually went to a homeopath, which was really interesting. I don't know if you know anything about homeopathy, but I was basically telling her it's like basically therapy. They're like looking at, your lifestyle and all of these things and your personality traits tied with your illnesses and how it kind of translates over a period of time. And she was like, my constitutional remedy was gold, which is Orem. And it's like people chronically get strep throat, but they're like notorious workaholics, and put yourself to like the extreme, and you do things above and beyond. And so I went on this remedy, Orem, which was crazy because I would have like these crazy dreams about like robbing banks and like stealing bars of gold and eating them. This is before she told me what the remedy was. She like wouldn't tell me what it was, but I was like drinking this like, I was obviously desperate. I was like trying to avoid surgery. And so she's like, I'm not going to tell you what your remedy is because like this remedy would look it up and like try to like, and then you would start to be like psychosomatic. So she didn't tell me, but I started having these dreams that I was stealing gold anyways and eating it. But anyways, after I started that remedy, I kind of chilled out a little bit, and then I like kind of reevaluated. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? This career is essentially making me sick because I was so stressed. And I feel like a lot of gut issues come from like the brain gut imbalance, which is stress.
So related. Yeah, once I left, it was very interesting to watch. My anxiety increased in other aspects of my life, but it was very interesting to watch once I like really started to handle my anxiety and go to therapy and meditate and journal, and I'm on antidepressants, like all of those things, how suddenly my gut was just fine. Like, it's crazy.
Yep. So, and at the time you were already with your now husband.
Yes, we've been together since 2007. So way back when we started dating in high school.
Okay, so tell us how you met. Did you know that you wanted to marry him the second you met him? Like, what's that?
We actually met in preschool, or not in preschool, in elementary school. He was a grade older than me, though, and like I feel like in elementary school you don't talk to people in different grades, especially if they're the different sex. So I did not know him, but we actually were in speech class together because we both had our speech impediments. And our parent, yeah, exactly, yeah, R, and now our last name is Rogers, which is comical, but. Our parents actually knew each other because our siblings were in the same grade. And then even weirder, my parents are high school sweethearts. They grew up on the main line in Pennsylvania. They went to high school with my husband's father and all of his siblings, and they were all friends in high school. So it's like very interrelated, weird. Like the connections are together. The connections are outrageous. So we knew each other, I guess, in elementary school. Neither of us remember. I then, for middle school and high school, went to the private school, and he stayed in the public school. And then because he wanted to play basketball in college, and basically like our coach kind of asked him to transfer to our school, repeat his junior year, and was like, I'll help you get recruited. So I eventually met him, that we remember, for the first time when he transferred to our school. I met him the summer before at like one of these big high school parties where like everyone was. And it's funny because when he came to school, like he was like the new kid that everyone was like, ooh, what's going on? And like we all thought my best friend was going to be the one that like dated him. And then we became really good friends, and we started hanging out all the time. And my mom would be like, who are you running off with? Like, who is this boyfriend you're with? And I'm like, no, we're just friends. We're just friends. And then it progressed into more than friends. Yeah. And then we were dating for a while. We dated for junior year and senior year. And going off to college, oh my God, it was like the worst day ever at that time. Like I was hysterical saying goodbye because we were going to school. Where did he end up going? So he went to school out in Iowa, and I went to school in Pennsylvania. So we were far. And we both were playing sports. So like it's not like we could even do weekend trips, and we were different seasons. So it was tough. Like looking back though, I actually think it really helped us. But we definitely like, had the dream of like when we're going off to college, like we're going to be together the whole time. We're going to get married. I feel like every high school couple kind of thinks that.
I feel like in high school, it's your
You think
first
you're going to
love.
marry
You go
whoever you're
straight to getting
dating.
married. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why when you were talking about the leaving for college situation, because
Yeah.
I had a high school boyfriend that was 1 year older, so he left before me.
Which is even
That
harder, I think.
way worse. It was the most devastating thing because I knew, I'm like, you're going to go to college and all these girls are going to like you. And I remember that like anxiety and that heartbreak, but
Yeah.
you get over
I
it.
honestly say this all the time. I think the hardest part of those 4 years was the 1 week that he was in school before I was freshman year. Because I was like, what's happening? What's going on? Like, what is school like? And he's busy, obviously. I think that we always said like we thought we were going to end up together. Also, I'm a child of high school sweethearts, so like it seemed feasible to me. But we talk now where we're like, that was such puppy love because we hadn't been tested. There had been no real things to like work through. You're in high school. Life is great. And kind of same with college, honestly. It wasn't until we spent 2 semesters apart in college because, I don't know, everyone like told us that you have to do that.
Yeah.
And so we did. And senior spring was one of those semesters, and when we got back together after college, that was a very like distinct period where we were basically having the conversations, do we want to get back together and end up together, or do we want to try and remain friends and go our separate ways? And I think that was the moment where we really actively were like, we want to spend our lives with each other. And so we talk back where it felt like puppy love up until that point. And then, of course, like as you get older, you continue to face new tests, obviously. Then you get married, then you have kids, and progressively your love evolves and grows and gets deeper. But I think that was the moment where I really was like, this is absolutely the man I want to marry. But I mean, my high school best friends who gave a speech at our wedding were like, Cam told us at 16 she was going to marry him.
Well, it's interesting because it sounds like from what you've shared that you guys had really similar kind of values and like alignment of family, right? Because you guys are both doing sports. It seems like you grew up in a similar area. And I think half the battle is having that alignment on like what's important to you and how you kind of grow up in some way. It really does impact your long-term compatibility.
Yeah.
And like my fiance, I grew up in LA, he grew up in Queens, New York, but like our families, like when I spend time with his family or he spends time with my family, it's very easy, right? Because our families are very familiar, right, to each other. And I think it's because of those similar kind of family values, even though we grew up in completely different places, right?
Right. That makes a massive difference.
So you knew you wanted to marry him since you were 16. When did you actually get engaged?
When I was 26, 2017. Yeah, when I was 26.
You
So,
guys
like,
had almost been together
young.
10 years at this point.
Yes,
on
which
and
is
off.
funny because, like, in my eyes, it felt like everyone was like, I can't believe you're not engaged yet, like 10 years together. But now looking back, I'm like, 26 is a child bride. I got married when I was 27, but engaged at 26. And like now I'm like, that's so young. But at the time, it didn't feel young at all.
Yeah, you were ready. Did you have a hand in that proposal, the engagement ring? Like, what was your involvement?
So ring, yes. I went, now I'm trying to think of exactly the timing. So at one point with my sisters and my mom, I was the first to get engaged of my 3 sisters. And we kind of knew that it was going to happen within a year based on like conversations that my husband and I were having. And I was like, I don't even know what ring size I am. I have no idea what I want. So I wanted to give my mom the experience of like doing the whole thing, you know, like ring shopping. So my sisters and my mom and I went to Tiffany's just to like have the appointment of like, what's my ring size and what are the different types of stones and, you know, that kind of thing.
No husband at this point.
No.
He didn't come with you. Just sisters and mom. Okay.
Yes. And the idea was my sisters would then know what I wanted. And like, I didn't want to know when he was proposing, any of that. So I knew that he would ask them. So I don't even think he knew I did this. But basically my sisters texted him and was like, when you're ready, we know what she wants. Like, come hit us up. And I guess he did that at some point. But I remember in the summer, we got engaged in October. But in that summer, I remember going on a walk and being like, I know we said we were going to get engaged probably within the next 6 months, but I'm not ready. I just feel really overwhelmed. Like, I just quit my job. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. There's just so much going on. And he looked at me and was like, your feelings are valid. I hear you, but I kind of think you're just freaking out. And I don't know if this is how you really feel. So if you say this again, I will hear you and I will react accordingly. If you don't bring this up again, I'm going to act like you never said this. And he was right, 100%. Like, I was just having a freak out and I never said it again. Yeah, it can be. And he then proposed in October. It was a complete, like, he did a full freaking behind my back plan. It was outrageous. And I had no idea. I was utterly shocked, which is surprising given that I felt like I knew it was kind of going to happen. I had no idea it was going to be that weekend. Yeah. So he proposed in October of 2017.
Can we get the details? Where did you think you were going?
Oh, of course.
No, yeah, sorry. Where you want to hike?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Well, I'll try to make a long story short. He asked my dad, and then he asked my dad a while back, and then he knew he wanted to do it at my parents' beach house because that was like our happy place. So then he had my dad schedule a dinner with him and my mom and like convince my mom that they were having some work dinner. And my mom still like talks about this moment because they're sitting at their restaurant next to my dad's office where they used to go for all the work dinners. And then Joe walked in and for a second she was like, why is Joe here? Like, am I about to catch him doing something? And then she's like, it clicked and she just screamed at the top of her lungs in the restaurant and started hysterically crying. So he basically told them, I really want to propose at the beach. What weekends work for you?
So hold on. He also surprised your mom with asking
they're
your
like
parents if they could get married.
Yes,
like
my mom and him are very close, so that he did.
And your dad like kept it a secret from her to make it like more dramatic. And that's really cute.
The drama. So they gave him a few options of weekends. So then he called my two best girlfriends and was like, okay, I really want to propose at the beach with our families and a few friends. So can you ask Cam? Be like, let's do a beach weekend at my other friend's house, at Kate's house. So Kate was supposed to text me and Deanna and be like, hey guys, let's do a weekend in LBI. What weekends work? And he gave them 3 weekends, 2 that we had plans and the one that he was going to propose. So she sends them over and I'm like, yep, October 21st works. Great. Okay. Then a week later, she's like, shit, my dad said I can't have people at the house. Cam, can we do a Bayhead weekend where my parents' house is? And I'm like, yeah, why not? Meanwhile, I then invite 20 people because Joe's whole plan was it was just going to be my 2 best girlfriends and his 2 best guy friends and our families. But I historically have like huge parties at my parents' beach house. And so I send an email to, I think, honestly, 25 people without even conversing with Joe. And he gets the email. And of course, he's like, oh my God, like this girl doesn't even know what is happening. So I planned my own engagement party without knowing. So I invite all of my friends to the beach. And we're there. We're having a great time. My family's off doing their own thing. They're not at the beach. I didn't know they were staying at our friend's house down the street. And it's Friday night. And like we're all just hanging out, whatever. I had been so sick all week. Like I am all dosed up on NyQuil. But I like didn't want to cancel the weekend. And then his sister actually made the state championship for field hockey her senior year. And I'm like, Joe, I think we need to go tomorrow, Saturday. Like, we have to go to the game. And he's like, no, Cam, we have all these people at your house. I'm like, we can leave. It's fine. Like, our friends won't care. We'll go to the game. We'll come back. Like, we need to be there for her. He's like, really? No. Oh, my God, none. And he's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, you care so much about her. Why are you being rude? So Saturday morning comes around and we're on a walk, like me and some of the girls, and we're just talking. And my friend is like being so annoying about like, when are we going to get back to the house? Are we going to have time to like shower and stuff? And I'm like, I don't know why are you so obsessed with showering? Like, it's just, we're just hanging out. She was trying to get me to shower because I hadn't washed my hair.
Trying to get you to look cute. Yeah, of course.
5 days. I looked awful. And I'm like, Danny, shut up. Like, who cares about a shower? She's like, you are going to regret that. So we go back to the house and I kept saying it was like a 70-degree day in the end of October. It was outlandishly warm. And I kept being like, why don't we all go to the beach? And they're like, no, let's just hang out and like play drinking games at the house. So then my friend comes up to me and is like, I'll go to the beach and walk with you. And I was like, okay, great. So she's like, let me just tell Joe and see if he wants to come. And then she runs into the house and comes back and it's like, no, he doesn't want to. I'm like, all right, whatever. So we go for a walk. And she's like taking all these pictures of me, which is not abnormal for her because she just like loves taking photos. And I'm like, stop, I look so gross. Like, stop taking pictures of me. I haven't showered in so long. Like, I'm so sick. And
She's been by the way, they were trying to get you to shower, so that's on you.
oh, no kidding. Yeah. But there's actually really cute pictures of me on the beach and you see Joe like coming up behind me.
Oh, so she was
And so
snapping
he comes
them.
up behind me. Yeah. He comes up behind me and I'm like, hey, go, you came to join us, whatever. And my friend's like, all right, I'm going to go up to the house. I'll give you guys some time. And we're standing there and we're just hugging. But my chest, like my ears up against his chest based on our height. And I hear his heart like through the roof. And I'm like, what the heck is going on with this kid? And then I'm like, oh my God. And as it clicks, he like gets down on one knee. I black out. I have no idea what he says.
The blackout is real.
Yeah. I say yes. And then like we're heading back up to the house. And in my head, I always knew that like our families would be there, but I still like wasn't even thinking. And as we get to the house, like both of our families are on the front porch, all of our friends, and we had like a rager that night. It was so much fun. And then they were like, he and my mom had also conspired to book the wedding venue that I was obsessed with.
Wait, what? Hold on.
Beforehand.
Rewind. They booked it before the proposal?
Yes.
Your mom was just, she probably knew after that dinner. She was like, let's lock it in.
Lock it in. So he was like, by the way, we booked Cedar Lakes and we're going tomorrow to give the final approval. And I was like, what? So it was unreal. It was a very, very, very job well done.
And then all your friends were there, built-in party.
Oh, it was wild. We didn't go to bed until 4:30. Like it was a crazy day and crazy night.
I mean, it sounds like he gets an A+.
It was an A+ proposal.
And the ring, did he actually propose with the ring at the time, or did you go pick one out together?
No, he proposed with the ring at the time, which I love. Yeah, he did a great job.
I mean, it sounds like he really just checked all the boxes.
I know. I'm like, you really set a high bar. We were like the first to get it proposed, engaged of like all of our friends, and all the guys were like, you really had to do this entire thing.
And so he booked the venue for what? It was like within the year?
October 13th, 2018. So 1 week shy of a year from that weekend.
And you said the venue was Cedar Lakes upstate,
Cedar
yeah?
Lakes Estate. Yeah,
Which
it's
is
in
an
Port Jervis, New
incredible
York.
venue. It's really one of a kind.
Gorgeous. It's literally one
How
of a
did
kind.
you
It's our
even
happy
know?
place.
How did you even know that you wanted that to be your venue? Had you been there before?
I hadn't. My friend who got married the year prior was looking there as an option. And when she decided to get married elsewhere, I remember we were having drinks and she's like, you've got to follow this place on Instagram. It's like totally your vibe. It's very like make your own adventure. It's campy. You can do sports stuff. Like it's very you. And so I followed them and they do such an incredible job on their socials of like covering the weddings. And I became absolutely obsessed, like utterly obsessed, to the point where I called them without my husband knowing and was like, hey, I'm just curious, how many weekends do you have left for like fall of 2018? And they were like, oh, we only have 2 left. And they gave me the dates. And I knew one was the weekend that our friends were getting married. So that was off the table. And then the other was October 13th. And I was like, it's not going to happen. And so I unfollowed them. I was so dramatic. I unfollowed them. I was like, I have to stop seeing all of this because I know I'm just not going to get married there. Yeah, like, you know, what I can't see won't hurt me. And I did not know that on the other side of things, Joe and my mom were working on that October 13th date.
So you like talked to your mom about it? She knew? You were like telling your mom, this is where I want to get married?
I guess I was just like, yeah, somehow she knew. I don't even remember having the conversations. Well, I was telling Joe about it. And I'm sure I showed my mom the Instagram, and then she probably was following them. Yeah.
And so you get engaged, and now the hardest part is already handled, which is finding the venue.
Right. Everyone's like, it was so annoying because, when you get engaged and everyone's like, oh, when are you going to start looking for venues? The next day I was like, oh, we're getting married at Cedar Lakes on October 13th. Like, we knew right away.
I mean, that takes out like 90% of the stress because
Truly.
like setting the budget and the guest count is like first and foremost to find the venue. But if you know what your venue is, then you know what your budget has to be for the most part and how many people you can or cannot invite. So it kind of like by process of elimination, like makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely. It made the process so much easier.
So did you end up hiring a wedding planner to help you coordinate?
We did. And she was like my fairy godmother. I say this all the time, especially at Cedar Lakes, like a place like that, when you're doing a full weekend, everyone's on site. Like, you need someone, and they would say this too, like, you do need someone. It's really near impossible for like the bride or husband or whoever to do all of this. So we had Amanda Savory as our planner. She's incredible. She's become like one of our closest friends. She then went on to plan my older sister's wedding. She's like become a part of our family. And throughout this year of engagement, I went through a lot. I think we've talked about this before, the two of us, but I got hit by a car while I was crossing the street. And then I was on disability of work for 2 months. I had a really bad concussion. I quit my job. I was starting this whole thing. Like, there was so much going on that the wedding would have never happened if it weren't for her and my mom. Like, we joke all the time that I showed up to a wedding that I did not plan. Like, I would make final decisions.
Remind me, it was October 2019 you got married or 2018?
2018.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, like, I was involved in the decision-making process, but it was heavily done by Amanda and my mom.
Which, to be honest, sounds like kind of a dream because even in planning my engagement party,
we talked about this.
Yeah, I was like, I really wish, so my mom passed away almost 10 years ago, but my sister.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. My sister is kind of like de facto mom situation. She's the oldest of 5.
Yep.
She's in the wedding industry, and I really needed her just to handle things. Do you know what I mean? Which she did help a lot, but she has 4 little ones and runs her own business. So not the top priority for her to plan, And it is so overwhelming. And I'm A-type. I like to know the details. I like to get involved in it. But also sometimes for me, not being involved at all, like, is nice too. Do you know what I mean? Just knowing it's handled.
Absolutely. So I'm like a recovering A-type. Mm-hmm. And this was like the first step of me giving up control over aspects of my life because I was like, design isn't something that excites me. Like, for me, I was in the weeds of every decision of the menu. So like, I knew everything that was being served the entire weekend, like down to the side, to the app, everything. That I really cared about. Flowers, I'm like, I don't really care. Like, I don't want these bright looking specific colors, but like, I don't care how, I didn't care about those logistics or like the tableware, and it was all gorgeous, but that's just not where my passion lies. Whereas like,
was your mom really into design?
My mom loves that kind of stuff.
Okay.
She loves to plan a party.
And you align with aesthetics with her?
Not always in life. On our wedding, we did. But I had, like, if it were up to my mom, I don't think you understand. She is like a very over-the-top, extra, incredible diva. And we definitely are different in that way. So my wedding was definitely, I think, not the norm, where it was like my mom wanting to do everything and me being like, why don't we pull it back a little?
Mm-hmm. Also, the venue itself kind of lends itself to a certain design aesthetic. Like, I feel like you can't go over the top glam when you're in this foresty kind of camp feeling setting. It has a rustic vibe to it, right?
Totally. And that's why I loved it.
So it's kind of hard to go over the top glam.
Yeah.
Did you have chandeliers hanging though?
Yes, but the chandelier is there. That's not something we put in. The barn
It wasn't like a number of,
Yeah, the barn has beautiful chandeliers. But like, there was I remember I once said on an interview, like, there weren't a lot of flowers, and my mom heard, and she was like, were you at your wedding? What do you mean there weren't a lot of flowers? But it was a lot of greenery. Do you know what I mean? Like, which I love. So it felt like an extension of the woods inside the barn, in my opinion.
So food was the thing that you were most kind of focused on. What did your husband help with, if anything? I mean, he obviously locked in the venue, which is huge.
Right. Yes. He was honestly similar to me. Like he was involved in every final decision. If we had like a design meeting to go over everything, he was there. And he did care when it came down to final decisions. He wasn't like the one who cared about looking at 20 different options for chairs. But when it came down to the last two, he's like, no, I do really like this one more than that or something, which was helpful because I don't always have an opinion on those types of things. He too definitely cared about the food. Like that was something we did. We did a full field day on Friday for just the wedding party and family. And we had like a legit draft, the two of us, where we had the entire like guest list.
Field day, like a sports day? Like where?
Oh yeah. There was kickball, basketball, football throwing, and relay races. And we had a full draft, the two of us, on like a date night where we had the like guest list and we were going one for one and you had to go male, female, male, female. Like it was a
Was
full
there alcohol
legit
involved in this?
Oh,
or
yes. Yeah. It was a big
recreational?
party day. Yeah. It was a big party day. We had shirts made. Like it was a thing. So he really cared about that. He was very passionate about the field day.
That sounds so awesome. And so you said it was a whole weekend. So the field day before, did you do like a welcome or a reception
Yes.
event for people arriving?
Yeah, it was a lot looking back on it. I don't think I knew how much this all was, like logistic and just wedding wise, until we started going to weddings afterwards because we were like one of the first to get married in our group of friends. So Thursday night was just the wedding party and family, and it happened to be Eagles Giants game. We're big Eagles fans, but like parts of his family are big Giants fans. So we had the game on and we did like themed food. So it was Philly foods like cheesesteaks and pretzels, and then New York foods.
Getting
so it was
hungry
like
listening
pizza.
to this.
I know. And then Friday was field day, and then everyone was invited. We did our rehearsal dinner just like wedding party family, but then everyone was invited to a welcome party. And then we had a little after party. And then Saturday, there was supposed to be like a lot of activities all day, but it poured rain, unfortunately. So like we kind of made it work. A lunch, and then the wedding started, I want to say at like 4 or 5.
So you had like pre-wedding festivities on the Saturday, like morning,
Yes.
afternoon,
like,
before.
But stuff for people to do. We weren't really there. We like stopped by lunch and stuff, but there was like a yoga class. There's a blob at Cedar Lakes that like you could go in. But again, it was pretty crappy weather, but whatever. We made it work.
And then on the wedding day, since you were not so involved in basically a lot of the details, obviously you had final decision. Were you
Yes.
surprised when you showed up and like saw how things turned out, or did you have a good picture?
I had a picture, but I mean, it looked more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. That's one of the only times I've seen my father-in-law cry. He walked into the barn. We all went to go see it Saturday before the wedding, like midday, and he just started hysterically crying. I was like, oh my God, Bill. Yeah,
Was
it
this the first
gorgeous.
first son or first child getting married on his side?
Yeah, we were the first to get married on both sides.
That's so sweet. How many people did you invite total? How big was?
It was big. I want to say 175 came.
Oh, wow. And it's kind of a destination, right? It's like 2 hours outside the city. Did people stay over?
Yeah, everyone stayed over, and which is why I really loved. So it's like on the border of New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, which is perfect for us because that's where everyone was from. Our friends are all from New York. Our family is between Jersey and Pennsylvania. But one thing that I loved about it specifically is I understand, like, obviously whether it comes to location or budgets or whatever, but one of the things that I think is like the biggest headache in terms of weddings is like logistics of getting places, you know, when you're a guest, whether there are buses, what time are the buses? Are you Ubering somewhere? Are there Ubers available? How far is the hotel? Where's the after party? And I loved the fact that everyone like our age could stay on site. No one had to worry about, are you driving? Are you parking? Are you getting an Uber? When's the bus? That kind of thing. It was kind of like come and go as you please, which is my dream. Like I love when a wedding's in a hotel and we're all staying in that hotel. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to run up to my room and leave my heels and get my sneakers, you know? So I loved that Cedar Lakes offered that. So we had everyone our age stay on site, and then our parents' friends, we did a hotel block for them nearby.
Yeah, having everyone in one place also kind of gets people to know each other, right? Because
Totally.
when you're walking around, you're like, oh hey, and the pre-wedding events. And did you do anything post? Was there like a post brunch or anything like that? Yeah.
Oh, there was
So,
a big after party that night, and then a goodbye brunch the next morning.
yeah, so like throughout all those events, people like really, really get to know each other, right? So after like 4 days of being together.
And I also think like because we've been together for so long, all of our friends are friends, like everyone knows each other. And because of that, we were like, we want to have this huge weekend for everyone. Like it was just so much fun for everyone involved because we all have known each other for so long.
What'd you do for reception? Did you DJ or band, both?
We did band and then DJ after party.
And what about dessert? Cake or dessert bar?
We didn't want to do like a huge cut the cake situation. So we did a cake that was like just a small cake. And we just cut it, the two of us. And like, I think our parents were there just for a photograph, but like no one would have even known it was happening. And then that was passed around. And then there were past desserts. There were like Oreo milkshakes, a banana pudding, something else. And then actually my planner, Amanda, and the sisters who own Cedar Lakes, Lisa and Steph, who I've become very close with, they surprised me with the Van Leeuwen ice cream truck because they know it's my favorite ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that late night or during the reception?
Right. Like at the end of the reception when dessert was being passed around.
Incredible.
So then there was ice cream. Yeah.
And then tell me about the fashion. What'd you wear? Did you have multiple looks? Was it?
I had multiple looks. Rehearsal dinner is still the favorite outfit I've ever worn in my life. It was a J. Godfrey white strapless, like twist chest jumpsuit I wore Giovanni Rossi, like white heels and this like white leather jacket and a pearl choker. I like just feel like it was the chicest and most beautiful I've ever looked in my life. Cute. And it just felt very me. Like I did my makeup, I pulled my hair back in 5 seconds and it was like, we're good to go. The wedding, I wore a Ramona Cerveza dress. It was the first dress I tried on and I knew right away. It was like low V front and back and kind of sides. It was almost like, I don't know what the name of the material is, but it's that like thick, tight, almost like a wetsuit kind of material-ish, where like you just feel like comfortable. A neoprene? Kind of, literally like that kind of. I just felt comfortable, and when I tried it on, I was like, I know that I will feel confident in this no matter what my body looks like or how I'm feeling that day. And that was something that was really important to me. I didn't want to like stress about how I was going to look. And it was like tight to the floor with a small train. But the way we did it is that you could like add on to build different looks. So I walked down the aisle with a like sheer overlay skirt part to give it more body and a like silk kind of belt situation. And then I entered the reception in just the dress. And then there was supposed to be this like silver belt situation for like a look, but it ended up getting thrown in the trash like while there was cleaning of our room during the ceremony, which I don't care about because like whatever. I didn't really like, it's not like I loved the look so much and like it didn't really make a difference. But then I had a custom dress made by a New York City tailor for it was supposed to be for my after party dress, but I put it on like midway through the ceremony or reception just because I wanted to be able to like dance more freely. And it was a very short, mini, high neck, low back, white silk dress with sneakers.
Cute. So you really, you went all out.
I went all out. Yes.
Did you keep everything or did you sell it?
I kept... Oh, interestingly enough, I was actually going to sell my after party dress, and my mom was like, "You cannot do this. What if you have a daughter?" So whatever, I didn't. But I put it on actually kind of recently. It is up my butt. Like I don't know if I got taller or what. I can't wear it. My rehearsal look, I did sell because I don't know when I would ever wear it. Nowadays, I feel like whenever I'm getting dressed up, it's for weddings, so I'm usually not in white. It didn't really fit me anymore. And my dress it's a pretty wild story. My mom took it to our local dry cleaners afterwards to get it like cleaned and pressed and boxed because it was disgusting. Like the entire bottom 2 inches of every outfit I wore that weekend were covered in mud.
Oh, wow.
Just because I was all over the place. And she calls me and she's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but they ruined your dress. And I'm like, what do you even mean? They like dry cleaned it in a way that they weren't supposed to, I guess. But then they like tried to fix it. And so they did it again and again and again and again. So when we went to pick it up, it was like literally like thin material that you felt like you could break with your fingers, and it was gray. And I actually didn't care at all. Like my mom was
But a
heartbroken.
Ramona Cabezo dress is not cheap. So like,
well, they actually gave us our full money back. It went to it was crazy because my mom was like, well, you just ruined a very expensive dress. So it went
Thank
to
God
like
it was after the wedding and not like a
I know. Oh my God.
clean situation.
I forget what it was called, like the National Dry Cleaners Association or something, but we got reimbursed for the entire dress, which is kind of a win-win.
Well, that's a huge win. Because you're not really going to wear it again.
I'm not going to wear it again.
But now at least your potential future daughter has your reception dress that she can pull.
Yes, and we ended up keeping the wedding dress because like I have photos when I was engaged of trying on my mom's wedding dress, and it was funny, and we cut a piece off of it and wrapped it around my flowers, and that's what I wanted to keep my dress for. If I have a daughter to try on, maybe she'll take a piece of it and do something with it. I never thought she would actually wear it. If anything, I was probably going to donate or sell it. Now, no one would want it, so...
Does it look crazy?
Like, it's not horrific, but no one would wear it to a wedding. Like, you can tell it's been ruined.
That's wild.
Yeah,
well, I know
really
some
crazy.
people that wait for I know my sister waited quite a while to have her dressed cleaned after the wedding, and it was also super dirty because it was at a vineyard and on the ground, and you're just dragging around, right?
Yeah.
And since I think it was like 2 months, then she got it done, right? And then it sat at my dad's house for like 3 years. My dad was like, are you ever going to come get this dress in a box? Like, I have this massive dress.
Right.
Because it ends up just being something you store, right? And I know a lot of people
resell. My mom's has just been in the attic. Right.
Yeah.
I think resale is a great option, which is what I probably would have done because
your mom wouldn't let you. She'd take it and she'd put it in her attic next to her.
She would literally be the person that would like secretly buy it from whatever website I'm reselling and not tell me and keep it in her attic. Like that is my mom. She would do that.
So funny. Looking back at the wedding, is there anything that you regret or things that you wish you would have known in the planning process?
I have no regrets, which is such an, I think, incredible and rare thing to say. Things I'm happy I did. Like, for instance, I was very adamant of I will never look at the weather and nobody talk to me about the weather unless I need to make a decision in that moment. I don't care if the forecast says a week out it's going to rain. Like, me knowing that is not going to change anything. And so I told everyone in my life, like, do not speak to me about the weather because none of us are going to be able to do anything about it. You can't control it. So I always say, like, don't worry about the non-controllables. Like, figure out what you can control. The things you can't control, you shouldn't waste time worrying about. And yeah, it ended up pouring rain and we had to change a few things, but whatever, it was still incredible. I just really believe that the bride sets the tone. Like, you set the tone for that weekend. I was at my friend's wedding a year after ours, and there was a hurricane in between the ceremony and the reception. The tent was literally flying off of the ground. Like, candles got knocked over, a table was on fire, and she was like, who cares? Let's party. And it was the best wedding. And she could have easily been like, this is ruined. I'm heartbroken. And then everyone is on edge. Like,
everyone
you
feels
set
bad.
the tone. Right. You set the tone. And if you want it to be a fun time, which is what my goal was, you make it a fun time. I also think that you have to remember nobody knows what's supposed to happen except for you, your partner, and whoever was involved in planning. Like, we changed our cocktail hour was supposed to be outside by the pool and like really beautifully set up. The night before, we had to make the call to switch it because of the rain to the pavilion. No one knows. Like, no one else knew except for me, my husband, our parents, and our planner. So all of these things that you're really stressed about if you have to change, really only you're aware of those changes being made. So like, don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do at that point.
Did you do a wedding registry?
We did, but honestly, like we did mainly honeymoon fund.
Yeah.
I just felt like we were in an apartment. We don't have space for all this stuff. We don't need like china. That was my mom's biggest thing, obsessing over us putting china on it. We didn't need appliances. We were set. The one thing we really wanted to do was have an incredible honeymoon. So we had a Zola registry that had like a few items on it, like a Dyson vacuum and like a few other things, and then mainly it was like honeymoon activities like snorkeling or a boat.
Where'd you
day.
end up filming?
Hawaii.
Oh, nice. And like right afterwards, or did you wait?
The day after.
Oh, amazing.
Well, like Monday, actually. Sorry, not the day after, but yes, right after.
Hawaii is quite a trip from New York / New Jersey.
Quite a trip.
You could have gone the other way around the world.
I know. We felt like we hadn't even packed. We packed when we got home on Sunday. We were in such la la land. We got on our plane Monday morning and we were like, what is even happening? Like, we got married. We're going on our honeymoon. We're going to Hawaii. And we slept the entire flight and we landed there and we were like, what world are we in? It felt like a complete dream.
I mean, it sounds like you guys did everything right. Like, what a whirlwind, picturesque situation. You're going to have to share the photo. And did you do video or no?
We did a video. Yes. I can share that too.
Well, you have to, share that, and we'll post the album so we can link it in the show notes. So as we're talking about it, people can really analyze and deep dive the outfits and the floral situation or the greenery. Because it sounds epic. And just as you're describing it, I totally get like a mental picture because I'm very familiar with the venue. It's pretty stunning and very unique. And it's kind of wild that it's just only a few hours outside of New York. I think people don't picture, unless you're familiar with upstate New York or, that kind of, those types of properties. But it is pretty epic. So,
and we've gone every year since we got married because we love it there.
That's so sweet. So now, give everyone the catch up. 5 years later,
5
different
years
life,
later,
different person.
Oh my God, different life.
You have Liam. How old is he? He's 2?
He'll be 2 in May. Yeah. So we have a 2-year-old son. I'm currently pregnant with our second, so we'll have another baby in October. We have our dog Charlie, who's almost 3, and we moved to the suburbs. Like, what a different life 5 years can be.
Amazing. It's so sweet. I feel like it's like the dream life. Although the thing I do appreciate about your Instagram, which we were chatting about,
I was going to say it's an amazing life, but there are definitely some.
Well, my favorite was I was watching. I was like, oh, Cameron's coming on. We're going to be chatting on the podcast, and I saw one of your Instagram stories, and you were like, it looked like you were hungover, like laying on a bed with like bad
being
lighting and
like constantly
like your
being
Instagram
hungover
story,
and not having the fun.
Yeah, you're like being pregnant when you have a toddler is like madness. I don't know what you said, but I was like laughing out loud. I'm like, just the realness is so appreciated because you don't get much of that on the IG. You get the picture perfect. And I feel like that's what's so refreshing about the content you put out and just who you are as a person is like you keep it 100% real, which is like kind of the antithesis of like what most influencers are these days. Everything's like the highlight reel.
Thank you. I have really tried. Well, not even tried. I just, quite honestly, it's out of laziness. I would not be able to create like the highlight reel and like make it seem like something is not because I just don't have the energy to, and it feels like so much work. So that's really where it stems from, if we're being blatantly honest. But I also think that for me, like that's the whole point of doing this work, right? Like I want to share struggles, what I'm going through, highs, lows, etc., because it's not all a fantasy. But then simultaneously, I will say, like as a creator, you do create boundaries. You keep some stuff to yourself. You figure out what you want to protect and who you want to protect, and navigating that balance.
And your podcast now, which when did you launch it?
4 years ago, I launched it on my own, and then I joined Dear Media at the beginning of 2023.
And you've reached like over 1 million downloads, right? It's like some insane number of people who are listening.
Yeah, we're doing really well. It's awesome. It's so much fun.
So if people want to follow along more of your life, that's definitely the place to go. We'll link to the podcast, your podcast, in show notes too. But I just feel it's also super refreshing. I feel like having you on today talk, I'm like, I kind of feel like I know you probably way better than we've chatted like once before, but I feel like I know you so well because of the IG stories and the podcast. Like it's just,
it's one
nice.
of the oddest parts of this job because when I meet people sometimes, or like people I'm loose friends with, I'm like, I forget that you know everything about my life. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know what. Yeah, it's confusing.
You're like, and I know nothing about you.
I'm like,
nice
I don't. You've got a leg up here, honey.
Well, it was so great to chat, Cameron. Thank you so much for sharing all the details of your wedding day and your love story. And I can't wait to see and hear when your baby number 2 comes, and if it's a boy or a girl, because I think you're keeping it as a surprise, right?
Yep, and we're going to find out in the delivery room, hopefully, as long as no doctor or anyone ruins it before then.
Well, can't wait to see, and good luck with the rest of your pregnancy, and hopefully we'll have you back.
Thank you. Yes, I would love to.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode. If you've enjoyed this podcast and want more inspiration and guidance, check out our new and improved wedding planning platform at loverly.com, where we offer free wedding planning tools and advice to get you hitched without a hitch. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Loverly. Happy planning!